Sonic the Hedgehog turns 25 this year, and with him the evil Dr. Robotnik, the iconic Green Hill Zone, and the shiny gold rings he's obsessed with. Rings have been in just about every Sonic game, but why? Because that's how it's always been? I mean, using rings as health in the original games wasn't some accident, it was a design choice. And I'd argue it was a bad one that shackled the series to tradition for tradition's sake. Real quick, before I really get into it, this is not a takedown of Sonic, and I say that because I know a lot of Sonic fans who will watch this will immediately get defensive. And if you disagree with me after hearing my points, fair enough. But I implore you to respond rationally and thoughtfully. And if you want a more positive take on Sonic, watch Errant Signal's video. Even though I disagree, I think it's really good. Let's go over a few of Sonic's in-game traits. He's fast by default, as in there's no run button like in Super Mario Bros. His only forward attack, be it crouching into a ball in the first game or using the spin dash in the sequels, prevents him from regaining any momentum on his own until he comes out of the ball form. Jumping is always an attack unless bouncing off springs. And one of his most important traits that I think a lot of people forget, he has a knockback to receiving damage. As far as defense goes, he collects rings, and when he gets hit by a hazard, the rings go flying away, possibly to be recovered. And that's why Sonic's health system is weird. For the sake of absolute clarity, I'm defining a health system as a numerical representation of the avatar's vitality, which upon reaching 0 results in a fail state. Sonic doesn't have health bars or magic potions that restore hearts, but he still has a health system. As does Mario, all the way back in the original Super Mario Bros. Mario's health system works like this. He has a value of 1 as default, grabbing a mushroom or fire flower sets it to 2, and every obstacle, not counting bottomless or lava-filled pits, does 1 unit of damage. Modern Rayman is basically the same way. Default health is 1, and having 1 heart equals 2 health. Even games where everything kills in 1 hit just means the avatar has a health value of 1, and everything does 1 unit of damage. In Sonic games, at least the early ones, you get hit, you lose all your rings. So he's got a very similar health system to Mario, except his health is also tied to his in-game currency. I'm using the term currency kind of loosely, but since gaining 100 rings results in an extra life, 50 rings at the end of the level results in a bonus stage, and all that jazz, it's fundamentally a transaction. Regardless, in Mario, grabbing a mushroom and grabbing coins are very different. In Rayman, grabbing a heart and grabbing lums are very different. In Sonic games, grabbing rings for health and grabbing rings for currency are one and the same. I can see the appeal, like getting rewards is tied to the player's skill at avoiding obstacles. Sounds great, but it quickly starts to unravel. The most easily noticeable issue is that the player only needs 1 ring to survive a hit, making collecting rings nearly pointless for those just wanting to complete a level rather than speedrun it to perfection. So in that situation, the only benefit to collecting multiple rings is having a larger amount of them spread out upon taking damage, but it's not all of your rings. You could have 99, but you'll only be able to recover about 20 of them. In terms of health, having 1 ring is the same as having 500. Now in a boss fight, the problem is that since you're locked into a limited space for the fight, rings can go off screen, which defeats the purpose of being able to regain them. The collecting rings system kind of works when Sonic can move around in a wide area, but here, all you have to do is make sure 1 ring doesn't go off screen. This doesn't automatically make Sonic games bad. Well, the first one is. The second one's great, but a lot of the traits I discussed earlier come back to bite you the more you play. Sonic's blindingly fast speed doesn't fit his offensive capabilities. I've been talking a lot about Rayman Origins in this video, but that's partly because a lot of the levels feel like they're designed for a Sonic-like character. In that game, running at an enemy and pressing the attack button results in an attack that doesn't slow Rayman down and allows the player to keep their momentum. But Sonic uses a constant start and stop process that slows the game way down and puts him into situations where he can be more easily damaged. And that's not even talking about how quickly an enemy can pop up on screen. Now personally, looking at my recorded video, I caught 8 frames, or a little over a quarter of a second, as the smallest time frame to react to. Way back in my Mega Man 2 video for Bubble Man stage, I said that the average human reaction time is between 0.2 to 0.3 seconds, to prove that a particular challenge was badly designed. But at least in that challenge, there's not much going on as Mega Man and the screen moves forward relatively slowly. In Sonic games, there's so much to distract you. And speaking of Mega Man, I noted earlier that Sonic has a pretty big knockback upon being hit. In Mega Man, this makes sense, and it works. Forward movement is slower, and Mega Man has a lot more offensive capabilities. So a knockback can feel well-deserved, like you should have been able to react to it. But in Sonic, a knockback to something you didn't react to in half a second slows the game to a grinding halt. Now those problems I just went over might seem like they're independent of the rings, but the rings just exacerbate them. Spin dashing doesn't help you carefully navigate through platforms and putting yourself at more risk for ring loss. When you get hit, you immediately focus on getting the rings back. They've become a distraction to your forward progression. And the knockback can actually sometimes push you into the ring, which might seem like a good thing, but that raises the question, why have a knockback? If you're just going to take a portion of Sonic's health anyway, why not have him go straight through enemies without losing momentum, like in Mario? Just a quick stop to display the health loss and then keep moving. And this is all skirting around the purpose of making currency like coins in Mario and Lums and Raymans bright, colorful, and giving them a nice little sound when you collect them. They're meant to be fun. But using the rings to serve as Sonic's health system devalues them as a bonus. They're now a necessity. They are allowing you to go into special stages and get Chaos Emeralds, and you know what? The special stages are when rings work best. There's no way for you to lose the rings, you just have fun trying to collect them because they're a bonus. And I don't hate the idea of rings as currency for stuff like bonus levels. I mean, the Rayman games I'm drooling over require you to get the most amount of Lums possible for unlocks, but there's no losing the Lums within a level, especially not from cheap ways. And if you're thinking applying that to Sonic would make getting the bonus stages and Chaos Emeralds too easy, I agree with you. But that just shows how fundamentally flawed Sonic's health system is, and trying to keep it that way because that's how it's been since the first games holds all future games back. This is all to say nothing of the 3D Sonic games, where the one-hit lose-all-rings system remains, but is now even worse thanks to Sonic's terrible 3D movement. And do you know who realized this system wasn't working? Sonic Team, because they started to change it. In fact, let's look at the first mainline Sonic game that started to change the ring system. Okay, maybe you don't consider it mainline Sonic, but it was made by Sonic Team as a successor to Sonic Heroes and released on consoles. It counts. In Shadow the Hedgehog, Sonic Team adjusted the health system so when taking a hit, Shadow only lost a maximum of 10 rings. This wasn't a good solution either, as it just makes ring collecting way too easy. After all, this version of the lose health get it back idea isn't quite as refined as Bloodborne, but it showed that the system needed some adjustment, at least on the assumption that a Sonic game needs rings for health, which again comes off as sticking to tradition for tradition's sake. They experimented with rings in several other games, but fittingly, Sonic Generations was where it came the closest to working. Upon taking damage in Generations, if you have over 20 rings, you lose about 80% of them. This still feels weirdly too forgiving and doesn't solve the you only need one ring to survive issue, but it was a step in the right direction. Sonic's style of platforming finally had mechanics well suited to him. Generations wasn't just a good Sonic game, it was a really good game, warts and rings and all. So I've been ragging on Sonic heavily through this video, but I really wanted this to get you to think about what makes a good health system. It's not just Sonic's rings we take for granted, it's all kinds of health. We often forget how many design decisions go into a game, and especially with something like a health system, and how many tweaks are needed to get that element to work properly. And nobody's perfect, including the games I've been using as positive examples, but their health systems fit their other mechanics and level design. Again, Sonic games are not inherently bad because of rings, but it's a flaw that has plagued the series from the first game. Hopefully Sonic Team is willing to keep tinkering with rings in the future, or outright replace them with something better. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe and tell me what you thought in the comments. Or tell me what you thought if you didn't like the video, but I really hope that everyone just keeps it cool. Like Sonic. Get it? Just no fighting, please.
Where's that damn fourth Chaos Emerald?